right, welcome to another episode of the logicast. My name is Blanca Kong. I'm joined by Gunner Eos, How to Wolf, and Mr. Esoteric Skills, who's right there. So today's or this week's topic is going to be about an article I found recently regarding Sony ceasing Blu-ray production, leaving physical media fans concerned. This is on techspot.com. The link is in the description in case you want to read it yourself. There's also a comment section, so you can read through the comments if you want to. But I'm going to quickly go through articles. A very, very quick article. So here we go. This was published January 24th, 2025 at 8:41 a.m. Sony, alongside LG, Panasonic, and others, are retreating from the optical media. Uh, Sony, LG, Panasonic, and retailers in general have been gradually withdrawing from the Blu-ray business for years as consumers increasingly favor streaming and other forms of digital distribution. However, some market indicators suggest that the demand for physical media hasn't completely evaporated, with many consumers harboring concerns for over quality and ownership. Let's see. Sony recently announced plans to end Blu-ray media production in February, delivering yet another heavy blow to the future of physical media. The company will also cease manufacturing recordings, mini disc, MD data, and mini DV cassettes. This news follows Sony's decision last year to stop production or producing writable 250 no 25 gigabyte BDREs, 50 gigabyte. I guess that's Blu-ray, right?
Yeah, Blu-ray
Um,
disc.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so a bunch. So the 25 gig, 50 gig, 100 gig, 128 gig. For consumers, in this week's brief announcement, Sony confirmed that Blu-ray media production will halt through the exact formats affected were not specified. We got what, four more paragraphs to go. Manufacturers have been steadily exiting the Blu-ray market for years as physical media sales continue to decline in favor of digital distribution. Panasonic, for example, stopped producing Blu-rays in 2023. I didn't know that, citing weakening demand and amid the growing popularity of streaming. Similarly, Best Buy discontinued sales of Blu-rays, Ultra HD Blu-rays, and DVDs later that year. I remember that. Sony has also acknowledged that Blu-ray storage market never lived up to the expectations. When the company announced the end of the BD-R production last year, LG followed suit by exiting the Blu-ray player market a few months later. Currently, Sony and Panasonic are the last remaining major manufacturers of Blu-ray drives. It remains unclear how Sony's decision to end Blu-ray production will affect the distribution of physical games for its PlayStation consoles. The recently launched PlayStation 5 does not include an optical drive by default, but demand for one was so strong that Sony's optional $80 Blu-ray drive attachment sold out quickly after the PS5 Pro's launch last fall. Final bit. The retreat from Blu-ray manufacture also carries significant implications for the home video market. While streaming dominates the landscape, many consumers continue to prefer physical disc without for various reasons. Although the quality of 4K streaming is likely good enough for most viewers, Ultra HD Blu-rays offer substantially higher bit rates. Furthermore, retaining a physical disc signifies true ownership of media, as the content is never permanently available on streaming devices. Very true. For now, major Hollywood films still receive physical home video releases. Meanwhile, consumer demand for discs has spurred a wave of Ultra HD Blu-ray remasters of classic films from distributors like the Criterion Collection and others. I don't know what that is. So yeah, that's that. Why is this important? Why are we talking about it? Who cares? Well, this to me is a red herring of what's to come, what I've known is going to come, what we all think is coming, and that's a digital only future for not just video games, but just media in general. And the fact that Sony specifically is pulling out kind of confirms to me in my mind that the PlayStation 6 or whatever they decide to make after the PS5, this is it. If they're not producing their own discs, they're not going to support that format, period, on any future hardware. That's why I'm bringing it up. That's why I'm talking about it. And I don't like it. I get it. From a business standpoint, I understand why they're probably pulling out. I don't know the numbers. I don't have access to their books, but I'm sure they have more than enough reason to make this pivot. It just, as a consumer, it is disheartening to see, and it does annoy the shit out of me personally. So anyway, with that being said, I will leave it to you guys to respond. What do you guys think?
Hmm.
So I'll go. I was reading the comments because I've already read the article, so I was like perusing the comments because comment sections are always fun to read. Only the most level-headed responses here. So just for clarification, which I believe the article does specify it, but I know we threw around a lot of terms like they're fucking Gundams and shit, CDRs and all that stuff. Apparently, this is only at the moment going to be for basically blank Blu-ray discs, so recordable Blu-ray discs. So if you're a boomer like us, back in the day, you used to buy a spindle of blank DVDs and burn Linkin Park Numb on it. That's kind of what Sony's getting rid of. So you will soon not be able to buy blank Blu-rays to record whatever on it. So just wanted to get that kind of caveat out of the way. But that
That's
does
true.
not, yeah. So but that doesn't dismiss what Kong said. It's just another nail in the coffin. It's Sony, which is the lead, one of the lead electronics brands in the world, transitioning out of the physical sphere. So does this mean that the PlayStation 5 next month is going to stop having physical discs? No, but we've been seeing that in the gaming industry for a very long time. Recently, as of the recording of this, Ninja Gaiden came out with a remastered version of their second game, Ninja Gaiden Black 2, and that does not, and more than likely will not, have a physical edition. The only reason there is a physical edition is because the online retailer PlayAsia went to Team Ninja themselves and said, "Hey, look, we're willing to front the cost for a physical edition as long as you make it exclusive to our digital storefront." So, unfortunately, the only way to get a physical copy of that game is to buy from PlayAsia. We're seeing it with Amazon as well, kind of having exclusive rights to sell the physical copy of Lunar 1 and 2 that are also coming in the near future. So, I think that's kind of where we're headed. I think the mainstream the goal is to get rid of physical media as a whole and kind of have digital take over. And I think unfortunately, did physical is going to be kind of bougie. It's going to be a niche kind of market where we'll sell you a game and it might run for 60, but it's going to cost you 90 because it's on a disc and we're going to give you a whole bunch of shit that you might not want, stickers and art books and music sample tracks, because where else are you going to get it? Where else are you going to get a physical copy? And one more thing, while I was perusing the the comments section, a lot of people or some people said, Sony will be back, and they used the example of vinyl records and CDs making a resurgence in the digital market. So for those that don't know, vinyl records and CDs have kind of been kind of coming back into popularity, not taking over the market by no stretch of the imagination, but definitely becoming more of a footnote in the market to the point where I see modern new releases of bands like Metallica, for example. They have their most recent release on vinyl. So that has to mean that vinyl, for example, has enough of a footprint that these companies think that releasing a vinyl version of Metallica's latest latest album is worth it. So could that happen? It's possible, but again, it leans into the idea that this is kind of going to be a bougie market for a lot of people. It's like if you have the extra money, you'll spend that extra scratch to get a physical copy. But if you just want to get it standard, you buy it digital and call it a day. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's kind of my initial points on it. And comment sections aren't known for their insightful input, but some of the people did make some good points there. So that's my input for the initial branch of the conversation.
All right, I guess I will go next. Yeah, this was pretty much the precursor to the beginning of the end. This has been a constant trend that has been happening, especially people within our age group who have seen certain types of medias in particular formats and how they've been kind of phased out for newer formats. And it just so happens that in this case, the newest format is something that's not tangible, um, which mainly raises like concerns for me, due to the fact that with again as you guys have watched the podcast episodes, we have always revisited like physical versus digital, which is better and whatnot, and I've always fallen on the side of physical because there are way more benefits of having physical as opposed to digital. One being ownership. You know, you own that said thing that you've purchased. Um, in some cases, that's not really the case because it seems like they're pushing glorified like installation discs to some degree. Uh, which also kinds of sucks. But we knew that this was gonna happen. It's just really bad, and also considering the other, like the previous episodes that we did have pertaining to like that big situation, which it's it's a big situation because it occurred, even though it only happened to a finite amount of people. This same company, Sony, some PlayStation owners, their digital games were erased, and Sony basically told them like, "Hey, this only happened to you guys." Not in this said, in this same way that I'm saying it, but they basically conveyed to them like, "Listen, there isn't anything that we can do. Um, you're just gonna have to buy and purchase all these games that you had prior," and that kind of sucks. And that's like arguably and like personally one of the biggest concerns I would have about digital media, because there's no way for you to keep it. You're at the mercy of whoever's providing the service to you, what they want to do with that particular media that you purchase. So it's very concerning. Um, as of right now, as you said, Gunner, it's only for uh, the disc that they're discontinuing is only for the utilization of burning things. Um,
Hmm.
you already explained that. That's what we used to do back in the days if we wanted like music and whatnot. But this is only like a foreshadow to other avenues, and it's going to be the gaming sphere. They already did it with, as they said in the article, they already did it with Best Buy removing, DVDs and things like that from their shelves. I believe they also did that with movies as well. Like there's no movies no longer being showcased at Best Buy or being sold.
Yeah, it's mostly
Um,
like an appliance store now and televisions and whatnot.
yeah, and I visited their my local Best Buy like not too long ago, and I'm starting to see that there's a scarcity with games as well. This particular Best Buy, they like to put their stuff on the shelves. Sometimes you'll get like the little picture of the game and they'll have it out back or whatnot. But this particular Best Buy, like there's little to no games being showcased. And it's a little concerning, because again, the ownership. And I can argue the other side with like the digital where it's more convenient. When you're traveling, you can carry more games because they're digital as opposed to you having to lug them around. But the overall scope of things is having having that game. Like, will I have it now as opposed to in the future? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can always pull up a cartridge or like one of my games from my library now, and I can always play it so long as the integrity of it is still good. I can play it now, or I can play it 5 or 10 years from now. Whereas um, these streaming services, you're not sure if your game is going to be there now or tomorrow. So it's a little concerning. Um, yeah, it just sucks that the trajectory of gaming and just physical media in general is taking this path, Because what's going to happen with books now? Are they going to fully discontinue books and just have them all on the digital platform? Um, are they only going to be showcased in libraries and whatnot? Is there no longer? Well, I mean, I was going to speak on Barnes and Nobles, but there's been quite a few of them closing. So there's that. Um, but yeah, I'm just saying that it's a little concerning. You know what I'm saying?
Bro, it's rough with books. You have no idea how hard it is to get a book if it's not reprinted, even from like 2019. Because I've been trying to get as many Warhammer 40K books as I could,
Hmm.
and some of these from 2019 are fucking rough to get, and the price has gone up because they haven't done a reprint for whatever reason. Whether it's like, oh, we'll just put it on our fucking Black Library app and you just read it digitally. So sometimes I have to, I have to pay like $40 or $50 for this book, and then I look at the back and it's like USA $23. And it's like fuck.
Yeah.
But
And,
that's the price I have to pay if I want a physical book.
and that's another concern as well because you have you mentioned Play Asia, you have limited run. What's going to be the deals in regards to like discussions on making these games physical? Because specifically limited run, that's their bread and butter. What they do is they take games that are pretty scarce or not physical, and they make them tangible for gamers, for collectors and whatnot. So I wonder what the conversations are going to be and how it's going to impact the consumers in the future should they actually fully push this digital only thing further. I'm guessing like these the prices on these physical copies are going to increase exponentially due to the fact that one, I don't think limited run has the manufacturing power to produce as many physical copies of games as they can. I mean, you guys knew what happened with the whole Shredder's Revenge when they were doing it. Like, I didn't get the copy of the game till like the following year from when they started taking pre-orders. So yeah, that's just an example of like one of the things I'm concerned about. You know,
No,
yeah,
it'll become more expensive, pretty much. It'll become more expensive because the amount of people willing to produce it, willing to sell it, is going to be significantly less. So, yeah, I mean, if let's say the standard game stays at $70, you might be paying close to 100, 80, 90.
yeah.
And they'll try to justify it and make it worth your while, like I said, by including extras and whatnot, little knickknacks and tchotchkes that
I don't.
kind of maybe make the purchase justifiable.
I don't
But
even think they're gonna do that. I think they're gonna go as far as to say like, oh, physical discs are gonna become the new collector's editions. It's gonna be like,
yeah,
oh, you want a physical copy of this game? It's a collector's edition, and that's how they're gonna start showcasing them and promoting them because
yeah,
of how scarce they are. At least that's just my speculations. I'm not a.
I get it. And if you want it, your options are limited. Like, where do I get it? Well,
Hmm.
if it's these two or three guys doing it, well then those are your options. Take them or leave them.
Yeah, yeah. But what say you, Wolf? What say you pertaining to this situation, this article?
Truthfully, I don't really care. I was like, I've never been really one-sided on whether it's physical, digital content in any kind of media personally. Um, and then on top of that, majority or a mass of people prefer, I think most people prefer digital content because they see it as a convenience. So
Hmm.
it's like this is a reality that we're going to face regardless of whether we want our content physical or not. Because I mean, this group of guys is far and few between, right? Like our mindset and motives and passion is a little different. as gamers or media consumers, um, uh, in general, we're just different. But I can't really say that if say worst comes to worst, like the worst happens and video games become completely digital, I'm not gonna. It's I. It's easier for me to shrug my shoulders than to be sad or concerned about it because a lot of times video games that I play anyways, I don't go back to once I'm done. Very rarely do I ever do.
Hmm.
So I can't. So for me, having it physical is not it's not a bad thing, but it's not something that's a like a token for me either. It's just if it's physical, it's physical. If it's digital, it's digital. As long as I get to enjoy the content for however long I choose to enjoy the content for, which it being digital, there's a moment in time where I may still want to play the game for years and years and years, and the company comes and takes it away. But I don't know. For me, it's just like I don't see myself losing sleep over it.
Hmm.
That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get that. Some people are like, hey, it's whatever. Some
Because
people,
I think it's like I said, I think I said this in the podcast earlier, or maybe it was just side conversation. Like where I work, everybody has their own office. Um, and as I'm passing through, if I walk through the hall and look into everyone's office, if they are not on their computer working, they're on their computer doing something that's like I think I said it last time, was like they're like shopping from home, from their job. So they're like buying clothes online or buying shoes online because my job is mostly females, and that's what they're doing if they're not focused on their work, or
Okay.
if they're taking their break or they're on lunch.
Okay.
Um, so it's like the whole value of staying convenient is it's a strong dynamic in today's society. So the companies, they're going to see it as, well, this is what the people want, because not much of us is really pushing back on, wanting them to keep physical copies. The one physical media that I am saddened about, and I think it's because it is a crucial product to any one person's, whether it's mental growth, educational growth, basic rights growth, just like basic, cognitive growth, is books. I really feel like books should still remain physical. Um, if you choose to have it digital, fine, but I think there should be a set priority for books to be physical content. I think it's really important for that. But when it comes down to, like, say, for instance, having Blu-ray movies, for example, um, and say you want to travel and you're on the plane, you're not going to take four, five, six CDs with you, right? You're going to, like, it'll be easier just to have it streaming off your phone, or if you have a flash drive with the movies on them, or if you have a service you can log into and boom, it's there. Um, that's the convenience of it. In the end of the day, like, even with the video games, for example, I, again, when it comes down to traveling, or when it comes down to being or staying mobile, or having a lot without taking up too much space, like, I'm not a clutter person. I feel very cluttered if there's a lot of things around me. So, like, just being able to have the games on one piece of electronic, instead of just like having to get up and, or, well, that's just laziness at that point. But instead of just having to keep switching disk or going through this pile or this stack of containers that has disk on them to keep switching it, for me, it's a clutter to an extent. So
Get it.
I don't. I
So,
don't. I feel bad for those who do appreciate social media. Not social media. I'm sorry. I take that back. I retract that. That was completely wrong. I do feel bad for those that I do not feel bad for anyone who is worried or overly concerned on social media of social media. Um, what I'm saying is when it comes down to physical copies, I understand why they can be seen as a gold token or they can be seen as, something that is highly respected or highly wanted. I get it. I really do get it. I have my moments. I have all four. Well, this is going to be four. Right now, I have all three Xenoblade video games as on the Switch as physical copies, and that was intentional. And I intend to get the fourth Xenoblade when it comes out, if it hasn't already, as the physical copy, the one that's supposed to be a remake from the Wii U version. Um, at the time of this recording, I don't know if the game will be out by yet. What's the name of it again, Gunner?
Xenoblade Chronicles X comes out
Chronicles
in
X.
March, and we're recording in
Hmm.
January, so it's
Okay,
not out, not
so
out yet as of the filming of this.
right, and that's going to be an intentional physical buy. Mm, For me, it's one of the best RPGs I've ever played. I'm not disappointed in any one of those three RPGs that and Chronicles X I played a little bit of because I didn't have the game very long on the Switch, but I'll know I'll enjoy it. So that's intentional. But again, I have say Digital Devil Saga as a physical. If I wake up one morning and for whatever reason it's not there, I'll be more upset that I spent $50 on the game when I bought it, and now I don't have access to it anymore. But at the same time, it's like, well, I already knew what I signed up to when I bought it as a physical as a digital, so I just have to move on from it. I guess I'm just not so easy to I guess I'm too easy to please, or I'm too easy to, or I'm
Well,
no,
just
you're
getting
just not.
too
You're just
impatient.
not really as invested in physical media as the rest of us are, which is
Mm.
which is fine. But I did have a question because you mentioned like books remaining in its physical form, like that should be. My question is to you: why is that? Um, why do you feel that it should retain its physical form? Is it because of us being accustomed to reading in that manner, or like what could it be? What is your reasoning
I'm gonna
behind
try
that?
my best to explain it. Um, so the reason why I feel like books in itself should retain its physical form is because back before even, I don't know, technology existed, or even before shit, man could wipe their ass with toilet paper. Like books was a thing, like books was something you read things off tablets, where they read things off of slates, and paintings was etched into the walls as their own form of books to tell a story. Like
Hmm.
books have been around in so many different ways and so many different formats, but regardless of it, all across time, it's been in some form of physical. Yes, now we're reaching the day and age where, hell, my phone could read a book to me while I sleep, you know? But at the same time, there's this novelty about having the physical book and turning the pages and reading the words on the pages and actually using your imagination once in a while. Um, like I think now they have like these, like on social media, you could find like these little like stories that's like done by these really bad actors.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, I've seen those.
right. And they're supposed to be like storytelling. And it's
Hmm.
like these actors are so horrible or so miscasted that I'd rather just read the book and imagine the characters in my own personal vision instead of having to deal with this clown that they gave a couple lines to read. Personally, that's how I personally feel about it. But I just feel like books have this they have this quality about them that's just like if you're gonna have the book, if I write a book and my publisher says, yeah, we're gonna get it out there, people are gonna be able to do audiobooks off YouTube or whatever, you can find audiobooks, and then they turn around and say, yeah, but we also have to sign for the physical copies. That would make complete sense to me. Plus, physical copies of books keeps certain businesses going, such as libraries. Libraries are so important to society altogether. And I don't think a library should change to where instead of there you walking into a library of being a rows and desk of computers, it should be as what libraries were always, rows and rows of books.
Yeah, it's gonna be one
Physical
big
media
server
you can
room.
take off. Right, instead of it being a big ass server room, right? Like I walked into the brain of Brainiac and the head of Brainiac. Like I don't want that. I want where I can sit with my son and turn pages as we read, and have him use his imagination and have him understand the words that they're using, not just hearing the words that they're using, but being able to read it, identify it, which is a great way to learn how to spell. So books bring this certain level of education and yet imagination, where I feel like that's why I feel like physical copies is very important for books. Um, I'm not saying that physical copies is not important for video games. And I'm not saying physical copies is not important for movies because you have movie enthusiasts who want their Blu-rays, who want their DVDs. You have music enthusiasts who wants their vinyl records. My mother still had, when she was around, she had vinyl records.
Hmm.
And instead of buying the artist's music on a cassette or a CD when they first started coming around, she continued to buy her vinyl records. So physical media was important to her. That type of physical media was important to her in that sense. And just like us being video game enthusiasts, I have my collection of physical media when it comes to certain RPGs, and Gunner has his when it comes to Zelda and pretty much anything else that he finds close to him. You guys have yours. Like I'm sure Blanca Khan has every single Monster Hunter game as physical copies as long as it's possible to be a physical copy.
I
I'm
don't
pretty
actually.
sure. Oh, okay. Well,
I do.
I okay, okay. Okay. But so I'm saying is I will never disregard the fact that, someone finds these contents to be important to them, so they will find these situations concerning. But I also understand that those people are a very small margin to the consumer base who don't care and just simply want their stuff convenient to them. And they don't realize that they're relinquishing the ownership by having digital copies, but up until it really hits them. I think that's when it'll change. But
Y-
that's just the way that society is now and where the situation is going. So
yeah,
I work with it.
that's what I was gonna ask again. Well, not ask again, but that's what I was gonna ask. But yeah, it makes sense that you would advocate more for books being physical because of like potential alterations and whatnot. Like, it's not so easy to alter a physical book. Like, once you do that, they have it listed as, oh, first edition, second edition, so on and so forth. But like, if it were a digital medium, it's a lot easier to alter without anybody knowing. So I can understand like books being physical and the importance of it, in order for it to like maintain its accuracy. That definitely makes a lot of sense. Um, but I was gonna ask you guys this, because I think the reason why the masses, we all know that the reason why the masses purchase digital is because of, for the most part, convenience. Now, and also, I'm pretty sure we all know that most of those people who indulge in digital media, uh, they're not reading like the terms of service and what like the companies that are providing this media are stating. Do you think that if, let's say, Sony becomes more frequent in relinquishing games from their servers that people have purchased and can no longer play, do you think that history will kind of like repeat itself in a sense that people will be more inclined to wanting digital games over, I mean, wanting physical games over digital games, or do you think that it'll just be, well, they're just gonna complain for the interim for now, and then once it blows over, they're just gonna keep purchasing digital games and not care about it?
Uh, as much as I want to say there'd be a resurgence, I don't think that'll happen. More than likely, most people will kind of just stick with digital, whether it's through the convenience, through just not caring. I just want this piece of content, as they'll call it. I just want it now, and I want to watch it once, and I have no interest in revisiting it. Um, yeah, I don't, I don't see it making a resurgence, unfortunately. I mean, I could be wrong. Like I said, with the vinyl and the CD thing, it's kind of hit a saturation point where it's enough for mainstream kind of record labels and yeah, record labels because it's mostly with music to
Hmm.
kind of give that as an option. Obviously, it's not the best option compared to something like Spotify or Apple Music, for example. But it's there. It's there. I can walk into a Barnes and Nobles, which is already a dinosaur to a lot of people, and buy like a vinyl of a current album of a band for most of the mainstream bands, I should say.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, it's possible, but I think again, like we had previous conversations and previous topics, people consider music and books and movies more of an art form that needs preservation as opposed to video games. A lot of people still see video games as just like kid stuff and these silly little beeps and bobs that we play on our computers. You know, books and movies and music it's still on an extremely high pedestal compared to video games. So, will you see a lot of preservation and like physical media still remaining in those mediums? Yeah, probably. Video games, I would like it, but I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to gauge.
Makes sense. What say you to the rest of you guys? What are your thoughts on that question?
I'll quickly go. I mean, I had a rebuttal for what Wolf was talking about earlier, but I
Oh,
know
my
we're running
bad.
short on time. It's okay. It's
No,
fine.
we're
I'll
we're
answer your question
we're
though.
good. We're good. So if you want to rebuttal and then answer the question,
So,
it's fine.
well, I'll just answer your question because it's fresh in in my mind. So,
Hmm.
um, basically, you were asking like if do we do I see a resurgence of like enough of a demand from a consumer from the consumer population to kind of force, let's just use Sony's hand to kind of revert back to the way things were? Is that the question
Under
basically?
under the pretense that Sony has decided to pull games from their servers much more frequent, because again, like, people who indulge in digital media has a tendency to acquire it for convenience, as well as, in that same token, not read the fine print that you don't own this. So a
Mhm.
lot of people are ignorant to that situation. So I was basically
Right.
asking, like, should Sony become more like frequent in removing games off their platform that people you know enjoy playing? Do you think that those people will be more inclined to, like, for lack of a better word, revolting, like, hey, you guys are removing the stuff I purchased off of there. We need to go back to physical media, blah blah blah. This, that, and the
Mhm.
third.
The short answer is no. There's a lot of examples from recent time that showcase that there might be a blip of resistance from guys like us, and there might be an article or two out there, or there might be a YouTube video talking about it, and talking about how unjust it is and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the market is just it's convenience is king, and most people will just kind of go along with it, even though they're getting screwed over at the end of the day. Um, so I don't no, I don't think so. I don't see a reality where that happens. I mean, most recently, I think back to Horizon. where they announced the remaster of Horizon. Mind you, this game is not even 10 years old yet. And they took out the original digital version of Horizon Zero Dawn off of marketplaces to basically force you to buy the new HD version for their desired. I
That's
think it
right.
sold for 60, right, or
That's
something
right.
like that. It sold for a hell of a lot more than the $20 that the original version was selling for. And so that's just an example of the power that we're giving up as consumers to the distributors, to the manufacturers, to the producers, to the creators, or at least the IP owners of these video games. And that goes for other medias as well. They can instantly take away and redistribute how they see fit. They can reprice it or not reprice things how they see fit, and you have to just deal with it. There is no such thing as a digital secondary market. There is
Yeah.
nothing like that, and that's why I think it's important to have physical media so that we have some semblance of choice and power in that particular space, whether it be books, movies, music, or video games, or anything else for that matter. Um, so I don't know. I mean, there's a bunch of arguments that one can post or pose to in favor of digital. Like there's the environmentalist conversation,
Yeah.
right? And I think there's merit there, right? That there's only so much space in the world, and at some point or another, if like we continue to produce things physically at the pace that we have been, we're eventually going to legitimately run out of space,
Yeah.
right? And so something's got to give, and I understand that. A lot of people don't make that
That's a good
argument,
point.
but I think it's a very fair argument to make,
Yeah.
and there we need to, as a species, kind of figure out like, okay, what do we need to preserve, what deserves to be published physically, etc., and that, like that's a whole nother conversation. So I'm not against modern technology. I'm not against it because I think it's very good. I use modern technology all the time, and I feel blessed to have been born and to live in this current time that we're living in human history. It's a
Yeah.
privilege, really. So I'll sit here and I'll complain about physical media kind of going away. That's because of my own biases surrounding it, but also because I think it's important. If I have kids in the future and
Yeah.
I want to show them what old technology used to look like, I think
Hmm.
that's important. Just like Wolf mentioned, wanting to go to a library and picking out a book, maybe a book that he read in his childhood, or a book that he thinks that would be important to his child's development. And here, read this book and experience what it feels like to hold the book in your hand and turn the pages physically and kind of absorb that information in a natural way. That's important to him, instead of going into a server room. It's like, okay, son, now hook your brain up to the fucking machine and download the information. Like,
Yeah.
that's not natural. That's probably where we're headed, and a lot of
Yeah.
people welcome that with open arms. And that's that person's opinion. I don't like that idea, but that's just the way it is. So, but to go back to your question, no, I don't think there will be a revolt. I think there will be a loud minority. Hi, how you doing? Um,
Mm.
and we will get told to shut the fuck up and either consume or live in the past. And I guess at this point, I'm just gonna live in the past. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. Wolf, do you want to respond, or Kong, do you want to rebuttal the?
I think what Kong said is pretty accurate. It's going to be a loud minority, and their voices. I feel their voices would be heard because they're coming from a logical standpoint of an argument, not just wanting to get their own way and be bullies to the topic. But um, yeah, it does ultimately go back to being convenience is king, and when most of the dynamic is people who aren't thinking about the positives that can come from having physical media. It's they're just gonna go with, well, what's positive to my time or to their time, um, or thought process without overcomplicating things or having to, you know, oh, I gotta go to GameStop to buy this physical game. Okay, so you got to get up and leave your house. But like things like that doesn't help physical media. Like it's this day and age, like when you start to present options to people, they're going to naturally pick whichever one is the most convenient to them. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, digital copies is that. And one thing you guys say that is completely right is giving up the rights or giving up your rights to having your item because you bought it with your money, right?
Hmm.
And they are now in control because they're the ones that says, okay, well, if we want to remove this item digitally, we can. Like the whole Horizon thing, I never knew that. That to me is crazy.
Yeah, I completely forgot
That's
about that.
literally market manipulation. I don't understand how they even got away with that, but they did. Um, yeah, so that's my only thing to it. Uh, I agree with Kong in that regard. Like, yeah, definitely, convenience is king. There's going to be a loud minority, but ultimately, they're going to get what they want.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because also uh, to the environment perspective, I wasn't even like honestly, I didn't even look at that as an argument because typically when we're speaking about digital and physical, it's from a like uh yeah, the word I'm gonna go for is it's not bad, it's not good or whatever. But people tend to look at it from a self-centered perspective, like myself. Like I'm more concerned about okay, well, I want to be able to retain my games. I want to be able to have unlimited access to my games. I want to be able to distribute my games to when I feel, you know what I'm saying? Um, or like if I have a child in the future, I want to be able to provide them with these games, pass it along to them, and then pass them along to their children. Or if they wish to like, if they're low on funds and I'm no longer here, and they decide to sell this because I'm pretty sure some of the library that I have here, some of the things within my library that I have here might be worth value in the future. Hopefully they can do that. Um, so yeah, I never really looked at the environment perspective. That is a very very reasonable point to make for digital. Um,
It is.
Absolutely,
Yeah, it
it
really is.
definitely is. Um, but yeah, it's just from a selfish point of view, um, which isn't a bad thing, because if you're buying things, you should have the right to want to keep those things and do whatever you want with those things. Um, I just feel like physical from that perspective is like more of more importance. Um, but yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Um,
Definitely. So like a little interesting again, reading in the comments section. I didn't know this, but and this is a comment section of a internet article, so not exactly the authority. Apparently USB drives tend to last 5 to 10 years, while Blu-ray/DVDs last 20 to 50 years.
hmm
Obviously, dependent on usage, and the discs can be scratched. So if you're playing, you know, your favorite anime on repeat for weeks on end, it'll last a little less than 50 years. But that's pretty crazy. These DVDs and CDs and Blu-rays can last so much longer, while a hard drive, especially a mechanical hard drive, those all have moving parts in it, and when that fucks up, like you could have your entire discography of music or movies in there, and if you don't transfer that to a new hard drive in time, I mean, there is data retrieval, that is a thing.
that shit is expensive. That's
And
like,
yeah,
it,
and then yeah, we get into that. So it's just like, whereas someone could make the argument, well, if you have one flood or one natural disaster, there goes your library, and it's like, eh? Yeah, but what's more likely to happen? A hard drive failure or a tornado in fucking the Bronx? Who knows? Um,
exactly. I mean, it's funny you mentioned that because like disk drives specifically, HDDs or whatever, they're meant for longevity, right? Because now we're in the season of SSDs, and those are based upon like read and write cycles. So they have like like hundreds and thousands of read and write cycles. That's basically if you were to place a file off of it or like on it or off it or whatever. Um, so they should last for quite some time, but people tend to use those things quite frequently. So like, yeah, the integrity of that definitely is going down a lot faster. And like the disk drive, the I'm not the disk drives, the disk, you some of them are rewritables. But typically once you write something on them, you're pretty much good so long as you can maintain them from like not being scratched or whatever or messed up in any way, shape, or form. You're pretty much good in there. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I have some ancient animes that I bought during the '90s, and I watch them every now and then, and they work great. And you'll have audiophiles who swear by the sound quality of these physical, as opposed to streaming services where everything has to be compressed and everything's dependent on your internet connection. So I'm not that deep into like, oh, if it doesn't have perfect sound quality, it's literal trash. But
mhm.
those guys exist. Those guys and gals exist. So they have to be taken into account. One last thing I'll bring up, which is a good resource for people to know, is there still is a way to get digital video games and have kind of ownership of them. I'm pretty sure most of you guys have heard of GOG or Good Old Games.
Oh no, I haven't actually. What's that?
Okay, so good GOG. I'll just use GOG or Good Old Games. GOG is basically a storefront kind of akin to Steam, but whereas Steam would just sell you the license to a game, GOG will sell you the files to a game. So
Mm.
essentially, they sell you a a permanent digital copy of the game, and you could put that on a flash drive, you could put that on a USB stick, you could put it in a terabyte hard drive. You could take it to any computer. You can download it on a million computers if you want, and it will always work because you have the game files. Those are your files. So GOG is kind of really the only way to get digital games and have and and literally say I have ownership of this game.
Ah,
The
okay.
drawback, yeah. So I would check it out. Like if you're interested in a game, check out GOG. They have a growing selection and they have a lot of sales in their own right. So you might be able to get a game you want on the cheap, and you'll own that game. But the problem with GOG is that they're not as up to date with Steam. They don't always get new releases, or it takes a while for them to get new releases. Whereas Steam, being the titular PC platform, they get all the releases right off the bat day one. So it comes down to patience. Are you willing to wait till GOG gets it, or do you want to play it now? But
Okay.
I just want to let people know, and you, esoteric, because you didn't know that check out GOG. It is a way for you to physically, not physically, but it is a way for you to get these games digitally, and you can put it semi physically if you slap that in a USB stick. You could technically say I own this game physically. It's on this USB stick, and I can install it on as many PCs as I want, and I'm good. So there are ownership. Maybe physical ownership is kind of the ship's already almost at the bottom of the ocean yet. At this point, but ownership in general is not completely dead, at least in the video game space. So I just wanted to bring that option up for anybody who may be listening and or watching. That is an option if you guys didn't know about it already.
Yeah, I absolutely had no idea about GOG. I'll definitely get that link from you and place it in the video description so that our viewers will be able to enjoy that site as well. Um, I didn't think that they would have something like that because wouldn't that be considered technically piracy or whatever? Like, are they collabing with companies and like, are they notifying companies that this is okay, or is it more like a under the radar type of deal? Like,
No, it's not like a shady third party site that you have to go to. It's
hmm
just it's usually they don't have brand new like you won't be able to get wilds from GOG unless Capcom specifically sells, the rights for GOG to sell it. So they're usually late to the
okay,
party when it comes to new games. And sometimes they don't get certain games. Like I know a lot of online games are not going to do that. Like you're not getting Rainbow Six Siege on GOG. Correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't been there in a while. So it's kind of like Steam and PlayStation.com, PlayStation, PSN, Xbox. They'll get the first crack of it, and then GOG will be, you might have to wait a couple years for a game to show up on GOG.
They get the
So
leftovers.
yeah, pretty much. But if you want to own a game, GOG's the way to go. Just have patience,
okay, okay.
or not be in a rush to play the latest and greatest. Pretty
Yeah,
much.
if you had to equate it to something, it's kind of like watching a movie in theaters, or watching it on cable, or watching it on regular TV. Because regular TV, those movies, like, I'm pretty sure maybe Avengers Endgame is now coming on regular TV after all these years. So
Probably.
yeah,
Yeah. It's like, do you want to watch this movie right now? Well, you're gonna pay some movie theater prices. You want to wait? Okay, it'll show up on Netflix a couple months from now. So yeah, that kind of equivalent.
okay, cool, cool. Well, thanks for letting me know, and the rest of the guys who didn't know.
Mm.
But we're moving close on time, gentlemen. Do you guys have any last remarks? Questions, comments?
Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I'll just end with I think physical media is important in general, and I agree with Wolf in that books I think are a priority. I agree with that 100%. I mean, books are the oldest technology we have as a species, so I mean we should preserve that, and I think it's a more effective way to learn. From a reading. I think if you gave me the same piece of information, whether this be fiction or nonfiction, if you give me the same literature in a book form versus a tablet digital form like on a Kindle or something like that, or an audiobook, let's just use those three. I think I would probably retain the information best if I read it off of a book. That could be because I grew up in a different time generation where that was the way you learned, and you just read it from a book or an encyclopedia or something like that. Whereas if you asked, or if you did a test on somebody from the Zoomer generation where they grew up with tablets and such, maybe they learn it better if they have it on the tablet and they're able to like zoom in or swipe or whatever. It could be like a bias thing. I don't know. There's no study I can point to that go, yeah, well, our way is better. I don't know that.
Hmm.
But I like to think that having hard media in your hands that you touch is just closer to a human experience, and that's just how we're wired and how we're built. And anything that's like digital, it doesn't it just doesn't hit the same as people say. And so I think it's the same for games, video games. Even like if you go tabletop games versus video games, I'm always going to prefer tabletop because I think the social experience is more memorable
Yeah.
than night 3 of a double XP weekend on Call of Duty. Like, there are moments that I remember there, but I remember way more moments in my tabletop days than I do for like any online game that I've ever played. So like, if you compare, the amount of memories I have for one over the other, like the hard physical memories that I could still close my eyes and remember the smell and remember the touch and all that, like I could still remember that. And so that's why I'm so attached to physical media, because it's attached to the human experience. In my, from just my opinion, my perspective, obviously, if you ask other people, they might think differently, and that's fine. So I agree with him on that. It's an inevitable battle. We will lose it. It everything will go digital. I think my biggest point of contention is the fact that the powers that be, the people who control this media, are not interested in preserving it or interested in providing true options to the consumer base
Yeah.
and letting the consumers choose. They have too much power, and they're going to choose the option that is most profitable for them, whether it's best for us or not. And I don't think that's right. And
Yeah.
so there needs to be a power balance. And I think physical media was the temporary solution to that power balance, which we're now going to lose. And there's no one person I could point to and like, it's your fault, it's your fault. It is what it is. We've all contributed to this eventual change. Um,
Mhm.
and now I'm just doing my part and having conversations like this, number one. Number two, voting with my wallet. If something isn't available physical, I am probably not going to buy it. Even if it's something I really want to consume, I have enough willpower to go, nope, I'm not buying it until there's a hard copy. So I know at least that I'm doing my small part in the overall war that I know will end up in a loss, but I'm still doing my part while I'm around and alive. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll let you guys have your final thoughts. Hope that made sense.
Hmm? I get what you're
That
saying.
makes sense. Yeah, makes sense.
All right.
I don't have a final thought. I think I think both sides. I think everybody gave pretty good point of views and perspectives in their own way. It was a good discussion, in my
Yeah.
personal opinion.
I mean, I don't have any more real insight to give. Just kind of, you know, yeah, I kind of know the writing on the wall. I see the writing on the wall, I should say. I'm just kind of getting what I can, it's collection wise, as far as video games, movies, anime, books, and yeah, man, if I get a little stockpile, I can stay in my own little world and enjoy that media for a little bit. I'm not like fucking doomer pill. I've bought digital games. I bought a digital
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
recently, so I'm not like anti-digital, but I know what I'm getting into when I give Sony my money, and I know I don't really own this, and I know that I am essentially glorifying. It's a glorifying rental service. I understand that, and I've kind of made my peace with that. And I'm not gonna be holier than thou and say I've never done it. Yeah, I've done it. I've done it very recently, and I'll probably do it again before I pass away. So it's just I prefer this method, but I understand where we are now, and you know, it's no crime to engage in it, but we all have our preferred methods, and getting a slab of paper with words on it is my method, for example. That's my little final tidbit.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. It was kind of like that. What was that movie, that Dewey Cox, when you said, "Yeah, I'm gonna partake in it again." It's like, you don't want none of this shit. And he's like, "Why not?" It's like it makes sex better. Like, But whatever. Um, I didn't fully say what they said verbatim, but it was there. The gist of it was there. Yeah, we all as a collective have dabbled in digital media. I'm not saying that digital media is complete shit or whatever. I tend to dabble in it more when it comes to indie titles, because there's a likelihood that they may not have physical releases for their games, and I want to support them because they're the closest to what, at least from my perspective, they're the closest to what good games are, and what they should entail. So I like to support them. Um, it's just a matter of not having that option, because when the rise of digital games first started, there was like a balance within the ecosystem of people who wanted digital can go digital, people who wanted physical can still acquire physical. But now with the powers that be, because they're so money hungry, they're phasing out the most uh, disruptive way of like producing games, and that's physical, because there's more avenues in which that they have to uh, provide money to, allocate their funds to, like the distributors, UPS, and all that stuff. They want to control the direct to consumer, option. So that's pretty much what it all boils down to. And unfortunately, physical games had to fall through the back burner. But
Also, want to point out something too, and I didn't get to say this before. It just came back to me after what you just said.
okay.
The going back to the article, them eliminating writable discs is a power move, and it's a long play power move because eventually the gaming community and those who have programming knowledge and all that, and just they know how to like jailbreak systems, the homebrew community, all these people, they're gonna figure out a way to redistribute um, video games, and if we have access to the technology and the resources to kind of make like hard copies of our old games and have backups,
Hmm.
that's another way to preserve, and they want to take that away from us. So that's why it's another thing that like pisses me off, because it's like, man, because like we have like writable CDs and all that, and I can create backups of all my PS1 games, for example, and just play the backups or play the emulated games on my computer or whatever. So that's one way I have it preserved. But I think this is another like just another step forward in gaining more control, because now if we don't have writable Blu-rays, for example, how are you going to preserve your PS4 game, PS5 game? You simply cannot, right? And so I think it's just another power move to like, yep, we're going to move this piece here, and then in 20 years time, we're going to prevent this layer of defense that they would have gone to, that will no longer exist because we did this in 2025. So that's why it like annoys me too, because I can kind of foresee what they're thinking, because it's like, well, surely we can take the games that come out in 2025 and just redistribute it to these fucking idiots, and they'll just reconsume it for whatever the market value price is, just like they did with Horizon Zero Dawn. So it's like, it's fucking gross. I hate it, but it's where we're headed. So I have to accept it.
Yeah, it's the ultimate
Going
gatekeep move. It's like we control all the games here, and if you want to be a part of this, you have to come through us. So it really does suck. Um, but with that being said, guys, once again, thank you all for the wonderful conversation. Also, huge shout out to Blanca Kong for providing us with this insightful article. The article will be posted in the description, so you guys can read it at your leisure, as well as our socials and whatnot. That will be also in the description. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Discord. The main channel will also be listed there. My Twitch channel will be listed there, and so on and so forth. And also, let us know what you thought about the article. Are you for digital games? Are you for physical games? Do you think Sony's move is a great step forward? Do you think it's a step back? Let us know. We would love to hear from you guys. So, with that being said, once again, thank you guys so much. Y'all have a wonderful day. And last but certainly not least, if it ain't gaming, it ain't logical, folks. Peace.